Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Stratosphere Lounge. I'm your host, Bill Whittle, and I'm tired. I'm very, very tired. I got a good reason to be. I just finished episode 4 of this Cold War opus, 10, 10 episodes, and it was nuts. It just wouldn't write it wouldn't stop writing itself. I was supposed to do maybe 4,500 words. I ended up doing 9,000, but that's par for the course. But in any event, it's awful good. I really liked it. I have to tell you, I didn't know too much about this particular episode. Dealt with the Korean War. I've known a lot about the Soviets and a lot about you know pretty much everything from Vietnam on. But I mean, I knew the Cold War happened. I knew when it happened. I knew what happened, but I didn't know any of the details. Um, and uh, and I had to spend a lot of time learning those details. And and it was just an amazing. What is this? An amazing experience, really. Funny thing about the Korean War, it went 3 years, but pretty much everything happened in the first 4 months, 5 months. By the time the first 5 months were over, everything that happened happened. Um, Busan had happened, Chosin had happened, Incheon had happened, all of it, first 3 or 4 months, and then it just ground on for another 3 years, 2.5 years. One of the many statistics I discovered was that I think it was 33,000 U.S. combat deaths in the Korean War, but only 8,000 before China came in. So the beginning of the war was when all of the interesting stuff happened, and the end of the war was where we took the most casualties. It was fun talking about General Ridgway, though. That was actually kind of cool. I'm sure I'll get a little bit of feedback about having actually mentioned his nickname among the troops. Ridgway was a hugely popular guy, replaced MacArthur in Korea, and he'd been the guy who had converted the 82nd Division into the 82nd Airborne Division, and then he was on the front lines of the Battle of the Bulge. So when he took over in Korea, morale was very poor, and he went around just bucking everybody up. And one of the things he used to do, just as routine, was you never saw him, Ridgway in Korea, never saw him without two live grenades clipped to his shirt pockets. Two of them, ready to go. Live grenades. Pull the pin, throw them at the Chinese hordes, and that earned him the nickname Tin Tits, which I just heard today, and I just thought that was great. Yeah, the whole MacArthur thing with Truman and it's just so strange. The whole war was strange. MacArthur basically, when MacArthur told Truman 3 or 4 days before the Chinese invasion, told him that China wasn't going to come into the war. It was too late. And then 4 days later, the Chinese appeared, having marched at nighttime. And once they were in it, MacArthur said, "All right, so China wanted to commit suicide. That's fine. I want to use nuclear weapons to take out the Chinese air bases across the Yalu in uh, in China proper. And then now that because they just taken Pyongyang, they conquered the north. And then he said, so we'll turn left and we'll go to Beijing and we'll dictate peace terms the way we did with Tokyo 5 years ago. We'll just march on Beijing and we'll knock China out of the war and free the country, and if they give us any trouble, we'll just nuke them on the way." And There's something to be said for that. One thing, MacArthur was nuts, and MacArthur did inexcusable things in terms of insubordination. Truman summoned him back to the White House. MacArthur refused to go to Washington. But he said he would be willing to meet the president in Wake Island. And Truman went. But this and many other acts, they're just rank insubordination, that's all there is to it. And MacArthur insisted all the way to the end that the decision to use nuclear weapons in Korea was not Harry Truman's decision, it was his decision. He would be the person to decide whether or not to use nuclear weapons on the battlefield. And whether he was right or not about many things, the fact is he was clearly insubordinate and kind of asking for it, kind of nuts. But I've often thought about that particular decision, especially the decision to use tactical nuclear weapons against military targets in China, which didn't have the bomb at the time or nothing like it. China got involved in a war, started killing American soldiers who were defending South Korea, and China is just ramping up our casualties. If there was ever a justified and moral use, when I say moral, I mean avoidance of civilian casualties, for nuclear weapons, that would have been it. You're going to take out military personnel on a flat spot on the frozen plains out there in Mongolia, practically. So I don't know. It's interesting. If he had done it, Eric Blake beat me to it. If we'd listened to MacArthur and done that, used nuclear weapons to keep China out of the war, there would not have been a Vietnam. I'm convinced of this, and there would not have been a Vietnam because the communist adversaries knew that America was serious, that we were serious, and we weren't going to do what we ended up doing, which is fight half wars. Fought a half war in Korea. We didn't use all the weapons we had. Fought a half war in Vietnam, yeah. If he had taken that if he had taken that that opportunity, I don't see how that could have been worse than what eventually happened. The Russians had a bomb. We probably, by 1950, we probably had 100 of them. But Russia maybe had a bomb. They detonated the first bomb about 10 months before Korea. And a bomb is not a trivial thing to have, an atom bomb, but they had no means to deliver it. And we did. And so the idea of Russia and China coming into this war, well, China did come into the war, and that's what would have provoked the use of nuclear weapons in the first place. There was never a plan to use them, not a serious plan to use them against the North Koreans, because they didn't have to. But it would have said something very different, and that is, now we're not dicking around here, And then the only question is, if that had happened, would it have essentially demystified nuclear weapons? And over the long run, would that have made a nuclear war more likely? I don't know. I'm beginning to develop a very almost radical theory about the Cold War and about nuclear weapons, and I'm giving it more and more thought. I think it seems increasingly likely to me that everything that we were afraid about in the Cold War just could not have happened. Not that it couldn't have happened technically, and not that the Soviets were bad people, nothing like that. But I don't think anybody would have pulled that trigger. I know you had to act like you would, and you had to assume that the other guy would, but I don't think anybody would. And I don't know, that story of that Russian colonel in 1987 who saw incoming American warheads on his radar, had orders to launch on warning, wouldn't fire them. He knew he'd be shot if he was wrong, and he also probably knew he'd be shot if he was right. He died just a month or two ago. He couldn't believe that was a nuclear attack from the United States, and so he basically withheld the order to launch a counterattack, a nuclear counterattack against the United States, and and he just did it on his own. I don't know what this is. Some kind of white stuff on my black shirt. Anyway, was that guy, was he certainly saved the world. The question is, would other people have pulled the trigger? This is the thing I'm arguing about with myself. Pretty convincing evidence that no matter what Eisenhower said he would do, he had internally decided he wouldn't do it. And I don't know what it is. Not dandruff. It's just some stuff. And maybe it's powdered sugar from a donut I wanted to eat but didn't. I don't know. Who knows? Anyway. All right. So let's. I'd like to keep this relatively brief. We're not going to limit it to an hour like we did last time. But I really am very, very tired. I've been up all night and up a couple nights. Just this incredible volume of reading and writing that had to be done. But that episode is behind me. It's 4 out of 10. I'm 40% of the way. And, oh, and by the way, I don't really want to talk about it too much, obviously, because I haven't really gotten clearance. I don't think it's exactly secret, but it certainly hasn't been really publicized yet. But this one is a podcast only. We did a recording. We've been recording on a really great microphone. But there's not going to be any video. I'm not saying that the Apollo 11 kind of thing won't happen again someday, but it's not going to happen for a while. I think there's some intent to see if we can build up a podcast audience, however, and if that happens, then we might be going back to that video. I love that room. I love that set so much. That Apollo series was loved it. It was the best thing I ever did. So I don't want anybody to be disappointed, but I'm not disappointed by it. It's storytelling, and as I said, it's only just a short time ago I realized that I'm not in the video business, I'm in the radio business, and so now we're going to find out whether that's accurate or not. Okay, so let's see. We definitely are going to take questions from the BillWhittle.com page. I also put up I did it again. Scott put up a page on the BillWhittle.com, and I got one up on Facebook, so let's see what we get here. I guess we can go to Facebook first, and then I'll play around and see what we can find on the other one.